Hello, everybody there. My name is Walton, and today I'm going to interview a teacher who works as an English teacher at Berlis. He's going to answer some questions about what we have discussed on the forum. He has lived in London for 6 years. So his name is David. David is 26 years old, and he have been working as an English teacher for 4 years. The first question is, what do you acknowledge as a peer observation?
Okay, well, I actually understand by peer observation is when one, like another co-worker or peer, is going to go ahead and have a look at your class to see what you're doing. And he does this in order to supervise you, or like to give you feedback, or like to give you a different perspective or view of what's actually going on the classroom. Because once you are in the context, it's very difficult to give feedback or any. I mean, to actually understand what's going around you. So I think that is what it is.
Okay, thank you. What do you think an observer has to focus on?
Well, actually, an observer needs to focus on many things. Actually, like what the teacher is doing, and also what the students are doing in case of education, because you need to understand perceptions and everything. One really important something really important is the fact that you need to have a look at body language, yeah? What is not being said, but what is actually happening. Because sometimes you just try to focus on all of everything that has been said and the interactions, but you don't really focus on what each person is doing at the time. So that is why it's really important for you to focus on all those things in order for the observer to be able to read between lines.
Have you ever been observed by a peer while you were teaching?
Yes, it has happened to me twice. Actually, it was one of my supervisors. I mean, he didn't give me much of a feedback. I mean, I suppose I was doing the things how they were supposed to be done, but it was uncomfortable. I mean, I couldn't feel steady, and I felt like I was doing something wrong, even though I wasn't. So I don't know. It depends because sometimes you just have this in at the back of your head that you assume that something is wrong, and that is the reason why they are observing you. But it's not the case. So I think you need to see the positive aspects of it and not just what you feel at the time, because at the time it tends to be awkward and uncomfortable.
Okay. Do you have a teacher portfolio?
Well, what I actually have is a teaching journal. I keep all the grades, the assessment that I've been doing, like with my students. I mean, you cannot really collect everything, so I just take like the most remarkable, sometimes like the best and the worst, for you to know what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And that's it. And I try to gather some reflections at the end of the semester or something. So it's good. It's like my own way of giving feedback to myself. But that's what I have. That's what I understand, even though I'm not really familiarized with the term portfolio, because what I use in my classes as a portfolio is like the students need to have an actual portfolio to um, put their older work so it can be assessed afterwards. Um, that's what I use, and that is what I consider a portfolio. That's it.
What do you consider is the objective of this teacher strategy?
Well, I think to actually have a portfolio with the students is very important because, I mean, they need to know what their process is, not just according to the grades, but to see how each thing is evolving, yeah? Like what they did at the beginning of the year and what they are actually doing at the end of the year. So they can look back upon it, and that is a great way. So, yeah, I think it's really useful and I'll recommend it. And if you're asking me about My professional journal, yeah, of course. Like I previously mentioned, it is very important as well, for the reasons I have already told you.
Great. Do you consider relevant the teacher journal in your professional development?
Well, I think it's essential because we as teachers, we need to reflect all the time, and this is a cyclical process. So we need to go ahead and do what we did wrong, understand what we did right to keep on doing it, and sometimes something you did that it was really good is not having the same results. So even something good can turn into something that needs to be improved. So yeah, I think it's essential. I mean, we always need to reflect. On top of that, all our students are going to be different, so you need to have that continuous feedback all the time, and the only way to do so is with a track of your experiences and everything that goes around it.
Thank you. Can you describe the difference from your experience between a teacher portfolio and a teaching journal?
Well, like I mentioned before, for me, teaching journal is where I used to reflect, and the teaching portfolio is just like something my students do. So the difference will be a journal is my journal of the teaching process, and then their portfolio is just a way to gather the assessment. That's it. For me, that is the difference. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but from what you're telling me, that's what I understand of it.
And the last question is, it is important to have a teaching journal, and why?
Well, like I told you, it depends because if you're going to take into account the teaching journal, and I already mentioned, is just to reflect upon what you're doing and what you're supposed to be heading to. But if it's just a portfolio for my students, is just to keep track of the assessment process. That's what I use it for, or what I think is supposed to be used for.